gentlemen, how's that for level? How are we doing? I'm Robert Arms, by the way, just in case you didn't know. But more important than that, I'm a Rangers fan. And I'm a Rangers fan because both sides, and I'm a Rangers fan on both sides, as I say. Because my mum was from the White City and my dad was from Nottingham. Both sides of the ground, quite literally. Nottingdale, Latimer Road, if you want to be technically correct. And then Norland Gardens until they knocked them both down and built two different bits of motorways. So I ended up on the Watling estate. I first came here when I was 5. My dad did me. And I fell in love. And I've only cried, I think, 3 times over football. I cried when Rodney Marsh left to go to Man City. And I had to rip his poster down off my wall. I cried when Liverpool beat Wolves 3-1. How many of us didn't cry that night? And I shed a little quiet tear when I heard that Stanley was well. And I think the reason for that is that I think we all know that Stanley Bowles was the soul of our football club. The absolute embodiment of who we are. Rodney was a great player. And I've got wonderful memories of seeing him. But Rodney was Rodney. Rodney played for himself, really. Rodney, I think of Rodney as kind of John the Baptist. He was going to announce the coming of the true Lord. And the one who was going to make that number 10 shirt the most legendary shirt in our football club. I mean, there's an extraordinary thing. I sit up on the South Africa Road. And this has to be the only place in the world where if you shout out, Stanley, half of the kids put their hands up. I mean, it's not a name you hear very much anywhere else. But W12 on a Saturday, there's a lot of little Stanleys right here. And that's because this bloke from the back streets of Manchester came down here, made me stop crying, in fact forgot about Rodney pretty quickly. And didn't just become a great footballer. You know, I think almost any of us, anyone who ever saw Stanley plays, if you shut your eyes, you can remember that little dip of the shoulder that he used to do before he went past people. You can remember just how sweet that left foot was when he played some fantastic ball through. We know how he loved taking the piss, how he would beat people and then beat them again just because he could. But we also forget sometimes just what an extraordinarily hard-working footballer he was, what a great team player he was. But what you can never forget is what a character he was. This bloke from the back streets of Manchester came down here to our manor and found, I think he found his home and we found him. I got to know Stan a bit later in life. I interviewed him a few times on the radio show. And then I was proud as punch when he came to be the guest of honour at my 50th birthday. Of course, I had to get him a cab there and a cab home and lend him some money to buy me a drink. But we would all have lent him any amount of money in the world. Because, and I talked to him that night and on other occasions. And somehow he found, we all, you know, I don't think many of us can forget how much Shepherd's Bush and Notting Hill have changed since the 70s. But when he came down here, he found this place of spielers and dog tracks and drinkers, and he found a place that was him. And not only accepted him, it cherished him. He told me how what he called the Notting Hill boys used to look after him. And as someone who was from a Notting Hill family myself, I was so proud of that. They were like the Praetorian Guard for Stanley. And believe me, he needed a bit of looking after. And that era, when Stanley entertained us all, we know we wouldn't see this like again. Football clubs like ours won't have a team like that 75, 76 team ever again. I mean, we've seen some fine footballers since. We've seen Les Ferdinand, we've seen Kevin Gallen, we've seen Adel Taarabt at his finest. And hopefully there's more to come. It's at the moment, I think it's a magnificent club. But there will never be another Stanley Bowles. There won't be another Stanley Bowles because he was of a different era. This is a time we're footballers that are defined by how much money they make. It's a time where footballers don't take risks and liberties. Stanley took every liberty known to mankind, and yet turned up on a Saturday and was consistently wonderful. Even if half the stories that we hear about Stanley are true, they're extraordinary.
My friend Russell Clark will relate some of those stories a bit later. He's here to give us a kind of potted history of Stanley's life and career. But we all know the tales of the Golu and the Adidas on each foot, the FA Cup sent flying, the getting nicked the night before in the van that was involved in an armed robbery, the drug dog, the night in the jail in Czechoslovakia. I mean, they go on and on and on. And yet, all these things happened to Stan, and things seem to happen to Stan, but he never lost that smile on his face. And when I met him in later life, he didn't have two bob. And he wasn't bitter at all. He said, look, if I said to him one time, Stan, you know, if you were playing now, you'd probably be playing for Barcelona. Because I literally think he is up there with the Iniestas and the Messis. He's that good. You'd have been playing for Barcelona, you'd have been earning £250,000 a week. He said to me, if they had a dog track in Barcelona, I would have lost it. He wasn't angry, he wasn't bitter, he wasn't upset, he wasn't jealous, he wasn't envious. He didn't know any of those emotions. He had a smile on his face every time I ever met him. He had a flat in Brentford. Don't ask who burnt that stand down. Just ask, how can we make Stan happy now? Really? You know, I think we all saw him the last time he was here, and we knew that probably would be the last time he was here. And I had a tear in my eye that day, because it was incredibly emotional. And I think everything we do to help the later years of his life is really important. Because, you know, he was Stanley Bowles. He was the king of Loftus Road. And therefore, when Joanne said to me, would I come here and say a few words tonight and host the evening, it took me about half a second to say yes. There's no one else I would have done this for, because there's no one else who I hold in quite such esteem. The greatest footballer we've ever seen at this club, and the greatest footballer we will ever see at this club. And I hope this club goes on to do wonderful things, of course, but no one ever will surpass Stanley Bowles. His poster will never be taken down from my wall. That number 10 shirt is forever his. Doesn't matter who else wears it, it's his. And they're wearing Stanley's shirt. So I'm rubbish at quizzes. I'm not even going to have a go. I can never remember the score of who we played last week. Except this season, I know we let loads of goals in. But have fun tonight. We're gonna do a few different things. Obviously, the quiz is the centre of the evening, but I want to talk to a few people as well. And first, I'd like to bring up Phil Beadle. Phil, if you come and join us. Phil's an educator and a Rangers fan, of course. Did you get to know Stan personally, Phil?
Oh, God, no. I wasn't that unlucky, by the sound of it. I was, as a kid...
Is that mic working? Yeah, sorry.
Right, I'm from South East London, and Rangers aren't naturally the team that I should be supporting. I should be a Palace fan, but it was just a question of the most beautiful name of any football team ever, the most beautiful kit. And then when I first woke up to the exquisite, extravagant beauty of football, there was only one team playing it in quite such a beautiful manner, and I was sold and I was lost. And
you poor sod. I had no option but to be Rangers. You chose it.
So this ain't my real home, but it's my spiritual home.
Tell us the story of Stan's trip to Greenland. What was that about?
Right, I never met him, but I'm going to have to read this because the writing in it's quite good. I understand that sitting listening to a geezer reading something can be a bit boring, but I spent a lot of time on this writing, and I haven't even got it on the right page. Right, so I'll take you back to 1999. I'm recovering from a broken long-term relationship, being put up at my mate Sally's flat while my ex-partner has been given the space she requires. Turns out this is really quite a lot of space. And there's beer in cans and tear in pints, but not only beer. My mate Sally is a top-notch PR, and she's got a lucrative gig as a representative of the brand Smirnoff Ice. Now this feels useful at the time, as I never have to return home from the pub without a final nightcap of teeth-rotting, overly sweetened poultry chemical spew to drift me off into a version of haunted sleep. Though I will later mark this period and Smirnoff Ice rolling it as being a key milestone in my continuing downfall. As part of the promotion of Smirnoff Ice, currently described by its makers as the original premium flavoured malt beverage that started it all, it started everything, you see, with its delightfully crisp citrus taste. There's an idea to take a five-a-side team of ex-pros over to the only country who don't have a FIFA ranking, which is Greenland. What this has to do with vodka, aside from the fact that Greenland is cold and icy, and Smirnoff Ice has got the word ice in it, no one knows. Least of all my mate whose idea it is, but it's happening. Sal knows nothing about football and has got no real idea who the ex-pros are that the PR firm has lined up for her. She has to spend a long plane ride and a few days with them and ask my opinions of their respective abilities. I remember a few she mentioned, and the opinion I expressed of them at the time. Phil, who's Graham Sharp? Centre forward Sal, ex-Everton, ex-Oldham, decent player, Scottish international, very nice looking boy, not really the real thing. Gary Gillespie. In many ways a journeyman promoted beyond his abilities, made his name at Coventry, transferred to Liverpool, centre-back, Scottish international, highly rated by some. Stan Bowles. I recall thinking that his name had emerged from her mouth without any understanding whatsoever that she had uttered the name of God. The two syllables had reverberated briefly around her gob and had come out imbued with the same lack of significance as she might have used for any former professional athlete. She could have said Gus Caesar for all it meant to her. I was dumbstruck. Phil, who's Stan Bowles? Wake up. Well, it's difficult to tell you in a sentence, Sal. Who is Stan Bowles? Well, Sal, as I say, it's difficult. But ultimately, he's the daddy. He's the naughty boy. He's the uber rascal. He's the Maverick's maverick. He's prettier than Tony Curtis, more saintly than Roger Moore. He's the third goal in injury time in a 3-3 draw. The 1970s were a decade for you and for me. They were just another uncared-for possession for Sir Stanley. He got pissed before superstars and fell in a lake. He's a profound moral lesson with the hips of a snake. He could pass the bookies, but he didn't feel the need. He's slower than John Robertson, but what's speed when you can land the ball of a head on a pin? He's the only person that can wear his shirt untucked in the correct and appropriate manner. He's a gilded signifier of beauty on any Rangers fan's banner. Yeah, Chivers had sideburns, but they weren't a real thing compared to Stanley's as he effortlessly judged the ball on a wing. They could not control him at Man City, so he's Stanley to them, but he's Sir Stan to me. He's Shanks' thoroughbred. He's the playmaker, the risk taker. He mixed it with Clough, and he could have played more often for England, but he didn't give... And I've written here toss, but it doesn't... There's another word that rhymes better with Clough. And he could have played more for England, but didn't really give a toss. He's the one, he's the only, he's the true, the current, the future, and the eternal King of England. And you, my friend, will be in the presence of real and true genius for the first time in your life. Sal comes back. I've PR'd Lisa Minnelli, you know. Well, Sal, there are really quite substantial correlations between the two of them, as you'll find out. Look after him, mate. He's the greatest. There's a postscript to this, and I need to ask, where's Joe?
Over there.
Can I tell the truth?
Yeah.
All right, okay. There's a postscript to this. Sal returned from a sojourn in Greenland with the ex-pros, and I asked her how it went and what she made us stand. Well, she said, he's the daddy. He's the naughty boy. He's the uber rascal. I was at the airport. Everyone was there on time. Stan did that.
That was Stan. You had that.
Everyone was there on time. No Stan. I got a call from him, plane near to taking off. He says, "Hi Sal, it's Stan. I'm not coming." I'm petrified of flying. She says, I talked him down. She goes, "Look, I've got loads of Valium in my bag. Trust me, they'll relax you. You'll be barely conscious." All right then. Half an hour later, he turns up bright and bushy and he says, "You got that Valium, Sal?" And I think it dishonours the man if I say what he said next, because it was outrageous. He was right as 9 on the flight, spark out. And then I asked her how did he play. She said he was a different league. Now, this lady knew nothing about football. He's playing with a series of Scottish internationals, and she said he made them look like amateurs. This is going great, isn't it?
Should we, I don't know, put it down there.
He looked as if he was really lazy, but then he'd do something that just made you gasp. He made every single person look second rate. "Oh, I've got a present for you." And I've gone, "Sal, look, I've had enough Smirnoff Ices, I think. I'm going to lay them off a bit. My teeth are going black." And then she presented me with this, which this hangs on the study wall where I write my books. And I'll read you the inscription on it. And this is, aside from the interviews that I did with the fanzine, which are my most treasured possessions, this is my most treasured possession, because it says this: "Good luck, Phil, you fucker. Stan Bowles." And there's a postscript to it, because everyone's read Stan's autobiography, which is an interesting text, and I have taught it occasionally at school with the concept of the unreliable narrator. Religion can be difficult to give up. You know that God is vengeful and intemperate, but he's still God, isn't he? Having read Stan's autobiography, I know that he was the most deeply flawed of geniuses, but he was still a genius, and he'll always be God to me. And I see the tear in your eye, Rob, and I share it. And I see the profundity of that childhood experience and love, because to me Stan Bowles was the first, most important and most enduring role model of my life. Stan Bowles taught me to stand out proudly. Stan Bowles taught me to live life with a little bit of flair. He taught me to walk around my shirt untucked and always to wear proper sideburns before I went grey. He taught me that most people want to be average, but the few who are prepared to live life as it might be lived, for them there's a place in history. And we all end our days in diminished circumstances, and I'm profoundly sad that Stan is struggling. But few of us have to have the guts to live like heroes. And for me, Stan Bowles is my first, most important and only real hero. He is a hero, and he always will be. Yeah, and that's the level of my love for what he is.
Phil? I was talking the other day about Stan to someone who was also here the same sort of period of time. You know, I've been coming here since '66, and he said, "Do you remember there was that thing?" He said, "When Stan got the ball, everyone went like that. Every seat, one standing. The minute the ball arrived at Stanley's feet, the whole crowd moved forward like that, as one in unison, because you just knew that something beautiful was likely to happen." And then it would. And then there would be this collective whoa. And that sound of Loftus Road watching Stanley Bowles is still the greatest, most evocative sound I've ever heard in my life. And I've watched Miles Davis, I've seen The Clash, I've looked at the paintings of Rothko. They don't come close to Stanley. And that's why we're here. And that's why in this bit of W12, and I hope myself personally, we're always in this bit of W12, that one name, Stanley, will ring out forever. Let's have a quiz, shall we?
Honey, I'm a sugar, sugar. When I mix them together,
Right, I'm certainly not the quiz master type, but Ray Niz. Ray is another Kick Up the R's columnist, a mastermind final runner-up. So this is one clever fellow you are dealing with here. Get up here, sir.